as I read the book, Vasant, one of the things that got me thinking is the industrial era. What it did was, the machines that got invented, okay, actually made humans into almost machines. We just do like what you explained in the hospital and the healthcare, where people have become actually machines trying to come in and they are just providers, as you call them in one of the chapters, right? In the AI era, though we are creating machines, I think we have to become more humans, right? Does it make sense to you?
So let's back up, right? So I think what you're pointing out is I describe the healthcare system in the US at the
Yeah.
moment as giving us the worst of both humans and machines. And I describe a situation where, I went to the emergency and I felt like I'd gone through an assembly line, you know.
Yeah.
And so the healthcare process has become sort of, unitized. You go from one you know provider to another. They ask you pretty much the same things, and then you get passed on like an assembly line. And that's what's happened now. So ironically, what's happened is as we've made this process, as we formalized the process, we've turned humans into robots, right? Where they're just functioning like machines in this process. And at the same time, the machines aren't learning much
Hmm.
about what's happening in the healthcare system. So that's what I meant, when I said we're getting the worst of both worlds at the moment. That is, humans have become robots, and we're not getting the full benefit of the machine because it isn't recording all the right kinds of data from our interactions with the healthcare system and learning something. It didn't learn anything from my experience, and I suspect this is happening, millions of times a day, where it's where we're coming into contact with the healthcare system, but it isn't recording the right kinds of data. So it's not learning, and at the same time, humans have become robots. So that's what I meant. But I'm optimistic that that will change because I feel like in healthcare, in physical healthcare, our incentives are more or less aligned. With the that is the patients and providers have the same kind of incentives. So I feel like we're going through a transitional phase in healthcare at the moment. We're getting the worst of both worlds, but I'm more optimistic. I mean, healthcare is one of those areas where I was more optimistic
Yeah.
that machines would actually look at this trace of activity that we leave behind. When we go see a doctor, there's some sort of an interaction. There are tests performed, uh, but so far it's been very difficult to pull all this data together into a database to make it usable and learn from. I'm optimistic that with modern AI, these tools that actually quote unquote understand what's going on in the process, that they'll pull this data together and put it into a proper database that makes it more usable to learn from.